You done? Can I do my podcast? Like, oh, Jesus Christ. Sorry. Hello. Welcome to the Go Grab That Day podcast. I hope everybody's doing well. Unless you're an asshole. If you're an asshole, I actually don't care how well you're doing. But, yeah, as always, guys, appreciate the support. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, the content, and stuff like that. As I have said the last couple of weeks, we are a little quiet. We kind of just have the 1 or 2 videos a week. As I said, there's things we're doing in the background, trying to benefit the podcast and stuff like that, but stuff I can't talk about right now. So I don't jinx myself. For any Irish people out there, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, just a little quiet at the moment, but we will pick up again, I promise. Just keep supporting us, keep supporting the channel, the entire Go Grab That Day community, whatever you want to call us. But just please keep supporting. Soon as well, I will have another name for this segment of the podcast. I always call it the Go Grab That Day podcast, but there will be different segments and stuff like that. I'm just trying to find some good names out there, but bear with us, and soon it will be, the MMA part will have its own name, and whatever else we do. That's enough of the boring stuff. But yeah, hope everyone's doing well. Hope you're all staying sane. Please check out our affiliates. As I've said before, we have one with Mystique jerseys, brilliant for gifts or anything like that for the family members that you like. I was going to make a joke, but I won't. But yeah, some great gift ideas on there. In particular, any sports fans, you get great jerseys, whether it's football, rugby, or GAA. Go check them out. Promo code Go Grab That Day, all caps, for your percentage off, and for us to make money. That's the more important thing. Also, go check out PPT Fitness and Nutrition. We have a link on the Instagram page with one of their programs there. Some brilliant programs that Peter runs, and he's also got two other people now working with him as well to, I suppose, be able to take on more workload. But his stuff is good. Go check him out. We have one of the programs linked, but he has heaps more, so just check out PPT Fitness and Nutrition. Yeah. Anyway, we got some fights to talk about, as always. A small fight card this week, but still some great fights to talk about. So, as always, I'm going to start from the preliminary card. Sometimes my mouth is just a few seconds quicker than my brain, and it doesn't end well. So anyway, prelims. First fight is, as always, we'll skip through some of them, but there's 1 or 2 fights I wanted to talk about. So Casey O'Neill winning by submission against Lara Procopio. Then we Rick Glenn versus Joaquim Silva, I think. Joaquim Silva. Fuck. Rick Glenn getting the TKO very early, 37 seconds in the first round. Then we had the heavyweight boys, Josh Parisian versus Raku Martinez. The commentators kept going over and back on his name, so I'm not even sure which way it's pronounced. But nevertheless, that was actually a fun fight. Pretty high pace for heavyweights. Yeah, it was quite fun. And then we had Chaos Williams versus Matthew Semmelsberger, which was also kind of a fun fight, with Chaos Williams winning via decision. The fight and the MVP for me of the night, even though she lost, was, I hope I pronounced her name right, Kanako Murata. She lost via, you want to call it TKO in the second round, to Virna Jandiroba. The reason I want to talk about her was, for anyone, I don't know if you've all seen the fight, but if you haven't, it's, pretty over and back fight. The first round, Jandiroba kind of dominated a little bit. There was a kind of a scramble where she got an armbar, pretty deep armbar on Murata. It was kind of a face down to the mat armbar, if that makes sense. Her arm was almost underneath, but you couldn't fully see how extended it was. But you knew it was pretty deep. But she got out of it eventually. Couldn't have been comfortable. But anyway, going into the second round then, And I've just rewatched the fight before I've done this podcast, and it was driving me crazy. The commentators didn't pick up on this. They were the fight was stopped in the second round, at the end of the second round, going into the third, because of her arm. There was something wrong with her arm, and the commentators put it down to that armbar. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't, but there's something they didn't notice, because she came out at the start of the first round with both hands up. I think she's if I remember correctly, she's a southpaw. Is she? Shit, I can't remember. Either way, it was her right arm, I'm pretty sure. And she came out both hands up. She looked okay, and she threw a punch, and you could see immediately she threw. She was like doing something with her thumb. It was almost like the glove or something, but immediately after that, her arm was down, completely down. God, I think it was her right arm. I hope I'm right. Whatever arm it was completely down.
I think it was
The left. I'm doing a podcast there, okay. So I think it was her left arm, maybe. But anyway, whatever arm it was, you could see that immediately after that, that little whatever she did with her hand, whatever she was checking, it dropped, and it did not go up. And she got caught with a head kick, and the arm still didn't go up. So you knew there was something wrong, and there was a very odd looking swelling on her elbow as well. It took the commentators quite a while to pick up on this as well. I understand. I don't know. I'm not sure. Like when they're watching the fights, I know they obviously have a screen in front of them, but I'm not sure whether they see exactly what we see back home. But I find that sometimes it drives me crazy that they take a while to pick up on these things. But I know people at home always have the best view. I mean, when if you've been at events, when you're ringside or anything like that, although it's great to be there, the view is much better on TV. But yeah, her arm, it just looked so bad. And other than that little quick check of her thumb or her glove, whatever she did not even look to the ref to complain. She was not in any way looking to get away out of that fight. She wanted to stay in it, and she was still popping her jab a little bit. I honestly believe if Janda Robert pressured a little more and timed like a couple of right high kicks or whatever it was, she could have got her out of there. But still, regardless, she showed an unbelievable heart, and in between the second and third round where it was stopped, I mean, she was in bits. She broke down as soon as they stopped it. She did not want that fight stopped. But if I'm being honest, I'd like to have seen her corner fucking throwing the towel before it even got to the end of that round. Maybe they didn't notice, I don't know, but I mean, you should notice that kind of thing. But yeah, she gets, well, and I say my MVP before I'm even on the main card, but I was super impressed with how tough she was, and how you show that kind of heart. It reminded me of, it's kind of insulting to her probably, but it reminded me of the movie Best of the Best. What's his name? Eric Roberts gets his shoulder dislocated and he fights on.
Do it on. Pop it. Pop it. Pop it. Pop it, Tommy. Shit, Tommy, pop it.
I mean, her shoulder was pretty much the same. It was hanging down. There's nothing she could do. But yeah, she showed unbelievable heart, and I believe she would have went on to try and finish the fight or get finished. Super tough, and yeah, it's a great thing for like fans. Love to see that. I'm glad the fight got stopped. Definitely, I believe it probably could have got stopped a little earlier. The corner threw in the towel, but I don't know. It's not for me to really say. Speaking on her corner, one of her cornermen, he was. They named him as a striking coach, so I don't believe it's her head coach, but it's Kieran Fitzgibbons, who was a brilliant coach. I don't want people to think I'm shitting on her corner or anything. But what I wanted to bring up while I'm on Kieran Fitzgibbons, he is the head coach of, what's the name of his gym? CSA Gym, which is Combat Sports Academy. I'm actually not sure where they're based. They're in America somewhere, but I'm not sure exactly. Is it California or somewhere like that? But anyway, the point I'm making is, he's a good coach, worked with a lot of good fighters, and he has some great young up-and-coming fighters. They're mostly female, actually. He's a lot of really good female fighters. Jessica Rose Clark is there, but he has Gaston Bolaños as well from Bellator, who's an insanely good striker. But what's funny about it is you have to, like, if you're a fight fan, check them out on Instagram, CSA Gym. And Kieran Fitzgibbons is the coach, but it's hilarious because he regularly gets hit by his fighters when he's holding pads. I've never seen, I don't know, is it just that most coaches don't show it, but I mean, he must 3 to 4 times a week get clipped by a head kick, get caught with elbows regularly. He gets caught, and it's hilarious. He puts together some videos of it, but also like it's not just comedy. Some of his striking drills and the pad drills he puts up are really good, but a very good, very underrated coach, I believe. There's a great podcast with him. I believe him and Gaston Bolaños on Joe Rogan. It was a couple of years ago, but it's very good. It's where I first kind of started paying attention to him. But yeah, it's hilarious on the Instagram when you see how regularly he gets hit. I mean, it doesn't make you want to be a striking coach by any means. And getting hit pretty hard too. But yeah, he's the head coach over there, and just wanted to mention like that. Obviously, I wish they'd stopped that fight a little sooner, but she came out pretty much unscathed other than her arm. But yeah, by all means, I'm a fan of Kieran Fitzgibbons, regardless of whether the fight was stopped earlier or not. But definitely go check out their Instagram. As I said, CSA Gym. It's a lot of fun. Finishing off on the prelims was Alexa Kamur versus Nikolai Negumereanu, I think is how you pronounce it. That was a pretty fun fight, decision to Negumereanu. Yeah, pretty over and back. But yeah, it was a fun fight too. But moving on pretty quickly to the main card. Kicking off the main card, I've already got a new MVP of the night. I forgot about this. So we had Matt Brown versus Diego Lima. I think if anybody is listening to this podcast at all, you should know that I'm a pretty big Matt Brown fan. I always have been. He's just I suppose the term is he's a fighter's fighter. He's just a badass. As is Diego Lima, Diego Lima has been around a long time too. But I was delighted. I love to see Matt Brown win because I think he's a really good character. Another guy who can kind of surprise you if you ever listen to him on podcasts and stuff like that. He's super smart. He's really, is really well spoken, despite the serial killer look he has on his face. But he's a very, very interesting character. A guy who almost died, was pretty much dead from an overdose before he got into fighting actually as well. So he's a very interesting story. He's a guy who I hope eventually brings out a book. I don't think he's a book already. No, he doesn't. Yeah, fun character and a fun guy, and he won by a devastating KO in round 2. He wasn't getting beat up. It was a pretty even fight, but he was getting chopped with some of the leg kicks pretty hard. A couple of more of them and he might have been in serious trouble. But yeah, right on the calf, Lima was landing. Matt Brown was landing some of his own as well. The difference is Lima was hitting them to the calf, whereas Matt Brown, a lot of his were landing on the thigh, which, as most people will know, the calf is a lot easier to shut off and much quicker. But yeah, devastating right hand to put Lima out cold, face down into the canvas. Great. It just popped it right down the pipe, flatlined him, put him out cold. And I like Diego Lima, I genuinely do, but I'm a big Matt Brown fan, and it's just that the way he handles himself is brilliant. Like after he won, he walked up to the camera and said, I think he said, "How is that for 40, bitch?" Because obviously he's 40 years of age. Just, that's the kind of stuff I love about him. He's just a genuine badass. He's like the kind of guy you see in a movie. He's your typical fighter in a movie, Just a tough, gritty dude, but a smart dude behind it all. Delighted to see him get the win. I'm always a big fan of Matt Brown. And then we had, where are we? Yeah, it'd be interesting to see actually who they give Matt Brown next. I like these kind of fights for him, Even though Lima was not an easy fight, but I'd like to see him get, finish out. I don't know how long Matt Brown has left or what's left on his contract, but hopefully see him finish up soon. Yeah, it would be nice to see him finish up soon. Been doing it a long time. I truly believe he is a guy who will go on to do some fun things afterwards because he is smart. He's definitely a guy who could have a podcast. But yeah, big fan. And then moving on, we had Bruno Silva winning via TKO round 1 against Wellington Turman. Then we had Julian Erosa getting KO'd in round 1 of his fight against Choi Sung-woo. Julian Erosa was quite a hard guy to get a read on. It's one of those very kind of tricky movers. It's very hard to train for him, but Choi Sung-woo knew how to do it. And then moving on to, in my opinion, fight of the night, which, if I'm honest, I thought would be fight of the night anyway. If not the Matt Brown one, I thought this Marlon Vera and Davy Grant, which was a great fight, really good fight. I'm a fan of Davy Grant as well. I like both guys. Like, I know I say that for a lot of these fights, but I do. I like Davy Grant. He's a fun guy and very real kind of character. But it was always a tough fight against Marlon Vera, which I actually didn't know. I should have known, is that Davy Grant actually had a win against Marlon Vera before this fight, which I didn't actually know that. But yeah, again, this was fun. It was just over and back. Vera was, in my opinion, throughout the fight, just a little bit better. But still, like, Davy Grant is just one of these tough guys, hard to put away. And it's just always going to be there constantly. Like, you know, he was taking shots and continued to fight back. Came very close with a couple of back spinning kicks. But he just got a little tired, just a little bit tired, and then Vera kind of tended to take over. Kind of said from midway through the second round on, kind of took over from there. But key thing in the fight for me, another thing which I talk a lot about, was elbows. Vera's elbows were vicious, and they were something you don't see often. You kind of caught him in a, I suppose, a necktie or a collar hold, and just started landing elbows up the middle and down the top of Davy Grant's skull. But the ones up the middle, he grazed them, just kind of gave him a little haircut, and the blood immediately started pouring out of Davy Grant's head. I think, I've said this as well a few times, I think it's the elbow is not utilised enough. You see it by some, like John Jones is a great example. You know, a lot of the ex kind of Thai fighters will use it, but yeah, I really like the way Vera used them in this fight. They're such an underutilised and dangerous weapon. I mean, you see the way they open people up. You don't even have to land flush. You just need to, as I said, give them that little haircut, and it opens people up. I saved a quote from Vera after the fight. Yeah, so Vera said in his interview after the fight, the elbows is something that I worked basically my whole life. I love the elbows. I was inspired by John Jones when I was a kid. Who throws better elbows than Johnny Bones? I just love the fact that they make you bleed. I feel the fighters break, and I feel that they don't like them. I love that. So I mean, it's brilliant. Like, I like to see fighters use elbows a bit more. They are such a dangerous weapon, and it worked in that fight because it did it. I mean, there's pictures of Davy Grant after the fight, and he's a couple of nice little slices all over. He's okay other than that. You know, the fight went to a decision which Marlon Vera won, rightly so. But yeah, I think I don't know if the elbows changed the fight, but I think they were definitely doing the damage that he wanted, and he used them so well. Like, just that collar, boom, right up the middle. You don't see enough people do them. And a great example, like he gave, is John Jones. So it's a great win for Vera. Interesting to see who he gets next. I think he had said something about the possible rematch with Jose Aldo, which is always fun. But moving on. So we had heavyweights in the co-main. Alexei Olenek versus Sergey Spivak, which again they changed the name a couple of times during the fight. It's hard to believe that Alexei Olenek has up on 70 MMA fights. That's unbelievable. Up on 70 pro fights, which is absolute madness. I mean, it's 76 to be exact. Almost 80 fights. It's fucking nuts. I mean, that is some serious experience. And yeah, the amount of people that guy must have choked out. In this fight, it's typical one of Olenek's fights. He's literally just going to walk you down and always try and get you on the ground, even if it means he lands on his back. He just wants to get you there to try and choke you out in some weird way that you're not going to see. he had his moments in this fight. I mean, it was crazy. I thought Spivak could have done a bit more. Like, you know the game plan with Olenek a lot of the time. He's going to eat your shots and he's going to walk you down, try and get you on the round. That's always the way it is. It was insane to see. Sometimes he was walking towards Spivak, and as Spivak would throw, he would drop his head, so it hit him on the top of the head, and he'd just take them all, take the shots on the top of his head, which is fucking crazy. Like, but yeah, not a whole lot of head movement, just walk in through the shots and get you up against the cage. Yeah, he just, you know, he takes too many shots, to be fair. Lethal on the ground, of course, and he had one or two moments where you're thinking, ooh, here we go. But yeah, it's just eventually, again, I think it was midway through the second, or maybe it might have been the end of the second, he was unbelievably tired. He was so tired, and he was just kind of winging punches. But I thought Spivak could have maybe finished the fight if he wanted to. Not enough output from him, in my opinion. But yeah, it was just unbelievable. The big thing about that fight is I could not believe he's had 70 pro MMA fights. It's fucking madness. That's, you know, 3 careers. But good win for Spivak against a big name like Olenek. But I just thought a little more. Need to be doing a little more when a guy is that tired against you. I know it's easier said than done when, you know, Olenek's name is the boa constrictor. You know, he can strangle you or make you tap from any position. But good win all the same, and yeah, unbelievable. That's some record. And then moving on to the main event, which was also a fun fight. This fight was the kind of, which I don't think a lot of people expected. The kind of difference in this fight was, there wasn't like it seemed like Korean Zombie just kind of led the dance throughout the whole fight, if that makes sense. He kind of was timing some takedowns here or there, some nice ones, which was surprising because Ige is quite good on the ground, and he's just landing his shots were a little more crisp and they were nicer, whereas Ige seemed to be trying to get him out there with one, which he can do, and he did at times kind of put him in trouble, in particular towards the end of the 5th. But it was I believe unanimous decision for the Korean Zombie, Chang Sun Young. But it was still a fun fight. Like, I mean, Ige did come on pretty strong towards the end of the fight. He just wanted to get him out there, but yeah, I thought, yeah, I was pretty sure by the end of it that Korean Zombie had it won. It wasn't that he like outclassed Ige, but he just led the dance a lot of the way. That's the only way I can put it. He kind of, yeah, was always leading. His shots were just landing a bit better. He wasn't winging them as much as Ige, and he did get his takedowns here and there as well. So, good win for him. It's another fun division, that featherweight division. I believe I didn't listen to a lot of the post-fight interviews, but I believe he mentioned Max Holloway, which I don't know if you want that smoke, but yeah, Korean Zombie's always, I mean, with a name like that, you're always going to be a fun character. But you know, credit to him, good win against a good name like Dan 50k EA, but he was just that bit better, just led the dance. Yeah, and that's it. I think we fired through that card a little quicker, but I'll have a little look at next week. Yeah, so before we look ahead to next week's event, I just wanted to mention I had a little look at, I didn't even know he was boxing this week, but Anderson Silva boxing, oh god, what's his name? Cesar Chavez Jr., which he surprised a lot of people by getting the win. Yeah, I watched a bit of the fight. I watched all of the fight. It was a lot of fun, actually. I thought Silva was much better throughout the whole fight. As always, I kind of thought the commentators at the start in particular were a little kind of biased, I don't know. But regardless, he looked really good. Yeah, it was just, to be honest, he looked like he had fun throughout the whole fight. And he did, like, he was getting the better of all the exchanges. One of the most fun parts was where he backed up into the corner and started calling Chavez in. He kept calling, even when Chavez landed a shot, and he was like, yeah, come on, I kept calling him in. It was a lot of fun to see, because, you know, that was Silva's thing back in the day. It was quite cool to see. And for me, like I was just saying about the Korean zombie fight, it was like Silva led the dance throughout that fight too. And it just looked like he had a lot of fun. He didn't have any fear in there. It looked like he belonged in there, to be honest. But of course, you know, this is he's no punk boxer, Chavez Jr. But I have heard, even from me who's not a huge boxing fan, that there's always been like some disciplinary issues and stuff like that. In terms of himself, like not being disciplined in terms of the way he trains and stuff like that. But at the same time, this is a boxer with a big level of fights behind him, so it's still pretty cool for Silva to go in there and do that. And yeah, again, the main thing that stood out for me was just looked like he had a lot of fun, and it's pretty cool for a legend like Silva to see that. I kind of don't like a lot of these, as I said, these older guys coming back boxing. I've said that more than once, but yeah, this one I did quite enjoy. I honestly would love to see him, you know, maybe have one more, but one of these, whatever you want to call it, thriller fights or celebrity fights where he gets a name suitable to his age and ability with plenty of money behind it. I would love to see him have a big money fight, make all the money he can and then happily retire. That man has definitely earned it. He's entertained people for years, you know. Still like one of the greatest strikers to ever race MMA, to ever race combat sports. And yeah, class act and a legend in the sport. And I did quite enjoy watching that. You know, shout out to the Pommy, Ian Stanbury, for giving me the heads up on that. But yeah, no, it was fun. I did enjoy it as much as I normally hate those fights, but it just looked like Silva was having fun. That's the only way I can put it, or the only way I can say it. But anyway, I'm sure Chavez Jr. is going to get quite a lot of flack because of that. I believe he's had a bit of shit anyway because, as I said, not being super disciplined, and with his father being an absolute legend. But nevertheless, I'm still glad that Silva won. So, before we finish up, I'll have a quick look to next week. We have another, I keep saying small fight cards, like, but I mean, they're great cards. They're just not an actual UFC event. But this card is quite good. So, kicking off the prelims next week is Yancy Medeiros versus Damir Hazdovic. Yancy Medeiros is always quite a fun guy to watch. Then you have Justin James versus Charles Rosa. Julia Avila versus Yulia Stoliarenko. For those of you, I don't know, you should remember, was Stoliarenko was the lady that fainted twice, I believe actually 3 times, while doing her weigh-in in her last fight, and the fight had to be pulled, had to be scrapped. Yeah, it was down to her making weight too early. She got on weight a bit too early. I've talked about it on the podcast, but she got on weight too early and then had to wait around too long without rehydrating, and she fainted when trying to get on the scale, which tells you how dangerous the weight cuts can be. But back to this card, we have Marcin Prachnio versus Ike Villanueva, and then at welterweight, Warley Alves versus Ramazan Emeev. Yikes, these names are not easy. Then at welterweight, we have Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Michael Prazeres. Then we have Timur Valiev versus Hani Barcelos. And then moving on to the main card. Let's see. Kicking off the main card, you have Renato Moicano versus Jay Herbert. Moicano is always a fun fight to watch. Still quite a dangerous guy in that lightweight division, I believe, but just hasn't been able to get the wins together lately. I think he might be on a 2-fight skid, if I'm not wrong. And then we have fun fight Tim the Dirty Bird Means versus Nicolas Dalby. And you have featherweight Daniel Pineda versus Andre Fili. That's a good one too. Light heavyweight Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Danilo Marquez. Again, another decent fight. And Tanner Boser versus OSP, Oven St. Preux, the co-main event. The main event, which is a fun fight, Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. Big test for Cyril Gane. Probably one of the best in shape, at least to look at, heavyweights in the division outside of Francis Ngannou. Cyril Gane moves really well for a heavyweight, just as does Alexander Volkov. So I think that's what makes this a very fun fight. I'm intrigued by this one because, you know, at heavyweight it doesn't take much. You know, it takes a win or two there just to get you up towards a title shot. And Volkov, you know, it's a big test for Cyril Gane. And I also think Cyril Gane is a dangerous fight for Volkov too. But anyway, yeah, that's next week's card, which I will of course recap and break down as always. But that is the podcast for this week, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed it and I didn't rush through it too much. And I didn't lose my ability to speak too much, which I kind of did at parts. But anyway, that's it for this week. So cheers for joining in, and I hope you're all good. Stay safe, stay happy, and keep supporting us. Thank you. Go grab that day.